I will not be lectured by the Greens on human rights. The Greens oversaw, they supported, enabled without any evidence, one of the biggest human rights abuses in Victorian history, and let's go through it. Now, the Charter, I used to be a big fan of the Charter of Human Rights and Responsibilities, but I saw what happened when the rubber hit the road during the pandemic. The Charter failed. The Charter failed. It did not protect the rights of Victorians. When rights are meant to be limited by, when rights are limited by the government, they are meant to be proportionate. Now, at least the government has the excuse that they might have had in executive privilege, they might have had access to these charter assessments. The Greens did not. The Greens did not. I constantly, over the entire term of the last Parliament, asked for these charter assessments. We never got anything at all demonstrating proportionality, except when the pandemic legislation came out and they came up with these summaries, which frankly were rubbish. So let's go through it. Section 10C of the Charter, protection from torture and cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment. In particular, Section C, subjected to medical or scientific experimentation or treatment without that person's full, free and informed consent. The Greens enabled ostracising Victorians who did not take medicine that was dictated by the state. We had teenagers that could not go into stores to buy uniforms. They had to get changed outside the store because of the vaccine passports. The Greens supported that. That was a human rights abuse in my view. Freedom of movement. Do I even need to talk about this? We had the Ring of Steel, the border closures. People were locked in their homes. The Greens supported that. They never saw the proportionality. They supported it anyway. Freedom of thought, conscience, religion and belief. In particular, Section 2, Part 2, a person must not be coerced or restrained in a way that limits that person's freedom to have or adopt a religion or belief in worship, observance, practice or teaching. Well, the churches, synagogues and mosques were closed, and those that attempted to go in and practice their religious observances were arrested. Freedom of expression. In particular, Part 2, every person has the right to freedom of expression, which includes the freedom to seek, receive and impart information and ideas of all kinds, whether within or outside Victoria, and whether A, orally, in writing, in print. There was ladies arrested on the street for carrying a sign standing by themselves. The Greens supported and enabled this human rights abuse. Taking part in public life. Well, I can speak personally about this one. Every Victorian, every person in Victoria has the right and is to have the opportunity, without discrimination, to participate in the conduct of public affairs directly or through freely chosen representatives. And every eligible person has the right and is to have the opportunity, without discrimination, to have access on general terms of equality to the Victorian public service and public office. The Greens voted to expel members of Parliament who didn't take medicine dictated by the state or chose to not hand over their paperwork, as was myself in that category. 4 members of Parliament were expelled with the support of the Greens. Section 21, the right to liberty and security of the person. A person must not be subjected to arbitrary arrest or detention. Well, again, I can speak to personal experience on this. On Cup Day 2020, the police arbitrarily detained around about 400 people because they were standing outside. Apparently they were breaching restrictions of which the Greens had no evidence of proportionality, yet they supported it anyway. Therefore, Section 21(2), I would say, is also a breach. Now, humane treatment when deprived of liberty. Well, we've talked a lot about the housing towers, haven't we? Well, the housing tower lockdown was one of the saddest and most awful episodes of the pandemic. Now, the Greens, of course, were supporting the government's emergency restrictions. And what happened, that was investigated by the Ombudsman, and the Ombudsman came to the conclusion, she agreed with me, that actually what happened in the housing towers was a breach of human rights. And one of her recommendations was that when people are deprived of liberty, God forbid, if we ever had another housing tower lockdown, one of her recommendations was to ensure that people have access to fresh air and exercise. Very, very simple thing. The Libertarian Party put forward an amendment when emergency powers were amended. We put through an amendment to guarantee fresh air and exercise for people that were deprived of liberty. The Greens opposed it. The Greens opposed it. They opposed fresh air and exercise for people locked down in housing towers. Maybe people should tell the people in the housing towers that the Greens weren't really their friends during the pandemic. Now, with regards to incorporating these rights into the Charter, there was actually a review by SARC in 2011, and it said this. It directly says that what the Greens are doing here, there's good reasons not to do it. I'll quote, SARC considers that there are powerful reasons not to expand the Charter in its current form with ESC rights found in the ICE SCR. Now, there's a bigger problem here around what is a right in the first place. Now, the Charter is actually pretty good in that most of the rights are what's termed negative rights, right? Now, this is what libertarians believe in. A negative right is something that you are born with, it's inalienable, freedom of speech, religion, these sorts of things. Governments can only either choose to protect these rights or they can choose to infringe those rights. What the Greens are doing is trying to introduce things that they think are human rights, things that sound nice, like housing. Of course it sounds nice, everyone wants housing, why can't it be a human right? But it imposes obligations on the state. This is the problem here, and this is why one of the good things when the Charter was originally designed, they did not do this, and that's why we should not support this bill. And I don't trust the Greens' philosophical view of rights. They view rights as something that they like is a human right. Everything that they like is a human right, and everything that they don't like should be banned. We should oppose this bill.